Hello, it's BigRedBarel, and we are here again on the floor with Gears of War 4. It's a big game here, and we've got one of the people that made it. Otto, please tell us exactly your name and your position with the Coalition.
Yeah, I'm Ottoson. I am the lead multiplayer producer for Gears of War 4.
Okie.
Yeah.
So you're the man responsible for multiplayer, is that what we're saying?
Well, I'm like the project manager for it, so I work very closely with the lead multiplayer designer, and we sort of build, together the strategy for how we're going to build it and what we get everybody to work on.
Okay. So when you say multiplayer, is that all-encompassing of all the multiplayer modes, or are you mainly on the competitive side? Did someone else pick up the Horde?
Yeah, it's everything. So it's all versus, including versus bots. It's all of Horde, and in fact, sort of the way we organize, all of the UI sort of falls under that umbrella as well.
Okay. Oh, so you're actually in charge of UI design for the whole game as well, then, or?
Yeah, that falls under our group as well. Yeah.
Okay. That seems an odd decision. That seems like something that should stem from the single player.
Actually, so if you look at like all the lobbies we have to create, all the stuff that goes into like selecting your character, selecting like your weapons, customizing, all that is multiplayer. Okay. And so about probably 90 to 95% of all the UI we build is for multiplayer, which is why we have it that way. And then we just, because campaign is all about that cinematic experience, all you need to do is get them into the game. You can select your chapters, everything like this, but once you're in there, it's just HUD and sort of objective text and stuff like that. It's not too hard.
That's interesting. And so what can we expect from the multiplayer this time around? What are you kind of adding to the equation? What are you bringing back to the fans' favourites of Horde, I believe, is one thing that's in there. But what's the overall multiplayer package?
Yeah. So uniquely to this Gears of War, we've had a team fully dedicated to multiplayer, so both Versus and Horde from day one. And so they never used to do this when they made the game at Epic, mostly just because they didn't have the manpower. And so what they did was they worked on campaign, and the same team that worked on campaign would then spend a little bit of time going to work on Versus, and then a little bit of time to work on Horde, but it was all the same. And so they had to sort of divert their attention. For us, we've been a fairly large team working on multiplayer the whole time. And so I would say that this is the most ambitious Gears to date, and especially on the multiplayer, both on Horde and the Versus side. And so when we were implementing it, we sort of looked at the type of people who play, especially on the Versus side. And so we drew up this sort of pyramid. And so at the bottom of the pyramid is new players, so everybody that we want to sort of encourage to come in and start playing. And so we need to make sure that we have modes, we have weapons, things like that for those players. Then there's like the social group, and so these are the guys like playing. They'll play like 2 or 3 times a week or whatever, go there for fun, don't really take it that seriously, so there has to be something there for them as well. So we've made some modes that are specifically sort of directed at that group. Then there's the competitive bunch, and those are the guys that care about their kill-death ratio. If they don't win, they get cranky, like those things. And so and then the top level is just the pros, people that play esports and are the very, very, very best. Okay. And so we've actually sort of taken a holistic approach, made things like co-op Versus. We made our bot AI better so that it introduces players to how to play Versus. We made a mode called Arms Race, which is chaotic, crazy, fun, but it also sort of makes you play through all the weapons in the game. So it's kind of serves as a tutorial, like a weapons tutorial, right? So when you're new, you come in and you play that, you have to sort of grok all the weapons. So yeah.
And how difficult is it to cater all the different modes to all the different groups of people you're trying to cater to?
Yeah, so that's why we took like specific modes and make them cater to those groups. And so we want to have it so that anybody can play anything, sure, but we sort of had a group in mind as we were building the modes. So that's what Arms Race was for, is for that group of people. Now everybody can play it, and so far we had a lot of positive reaction to it. And then Dodgeball, one of the modes that we had in the beta, that's sort of a deathmatch type mode, and usually their sort of social to competitive group plays that a lot, except it has another sort of twist to it in how it spawns people in. And then Escalation is our big competitive sort of esports mode. And when we were designing that and building it, we looked at like the whole sort of esports business, and we talked to a lot of the companies that run like ESL, MLG to talk about like, hey, what is it that's important? How long should these matches go for and things like that? And so we came up with a mode that is both built for the players at a competitive level, the casters, they have more to talk about, and the viewers, so that they have sort of a narrative to sort of follow through the whole match.
And I guess these days you can't ignore the esports market, and that's a big difference to the original designs for multiplayer on Gears of War.
Yeah, the way they sort of approached it before was they had a game in mind, and the game is sort of the one that you play in campaign, where you get into cover, you sort of sit there and try and have a fight over cover. Now, when they released the multiplayer, it didn't turn out that way. Like, all the guys were really good at it. They ended up chaining these moves together and going in like full bore with the shotgun, and shotgun had like 80% of all the kills.
Shotgun roll.
Yeah, exactly. And for them, they were like, no, that's not what it's supposed to play like. And when we got the franchise, we looked at it and went, well, that's the game. Like, if people play like that, we would rather make that a better experience. So we looked at it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And has it been difficult picking up a franchise that's much beloved and's got a lot of expectations for it, but that some of, at least the hardcore fans, felt that the ball was dropped in the previous generation, and that's something you have to overcome as taking it from Epic and taking it further?
So when you say ball is dropped, you mean with Judgment?
I may be saying Judgment. Personally, I possibly didn't play enough of Judgment to make a judgment call on that, but generally, a lot of fans kind of felt that way. And does that put you in a difficult position?
That specifically doesn't, but like, the challenge of getting a franchise like this is it has a lot of legacy behind it. Yeah. It was given to us as a studio. We hadn't really released anything. I mean, we have a lot of really talented developers, but as a team, we'd never released anything. And so, as fans, like, they looked at us and went, why are these guys taking our beloved franchise? Yeah. And so there's a lot of pressure on us to deliver. Mm-hmm. And so we took that very, very seriously on the developer side. And so we spent a lot of time analyzing the way the game worked to make sure that we're making it feel like a Gears game. In fact, it took months of engineers and designers and developers just working, analyzing, looking at it, making the shotgun feel right. I mean, I remember the time when we had a playtest and finally we got it right. And there was lots of little things that go into it, like, you wouldn't even believe. And so, yeah, like, the pressure is there. The focus was, hey, make it feel like Gears. And like you were saying, like, the trilogy is really, for us, is really sort of the legacy of Gears. Yeah. 1, 2, and 3. And we looked at what they did with Judgment, and we liked a lot of things they brought. But in terms of, like, bringing the sort of big characters back and bringing a new story that has that same sort of impact as the originals did, that's sort of what we were looking at.
And we're seeing a new generation of cogs, if they even are cogs this time around. Right. But what does that bring to the table in terms of gameplay and differences for how the game plays this time around? Basically?
Right. I mean, like, the gameplay is very similar, you'll find. I mean, we want people to play and come out of it and say, that felt like a Gears game. Yeah. So that was our goal. Now, we felt like the trilogy, the previous trilogy, had an arc that ended, and we felt it did so very well. And so the Locusts were wiped out, war was over, and so when we looked at what do we do next, we wanted to start a new story, and so it felt right to us to go into the future. And so basically, JD Phoenix is Marcus Phoenix's son, and so there's a lot of sort of interaction between those two that's interesting. But with the gameplay itself, like, we looked at it more like how can we evolve it rather than how do we now have to change it for this new generation. And so one of the things that we did is add this thing called close cover combat. We call it the CCC. And it was basically to address this kind of awkward moment that would happen sometimes when an enemy and you would get into cover. You'd be, like, really close to each other, and you'd be trying to, like, it would be like a Naked Gun moment where you're, like, trying to shoot, like who's the first to get you. And I mean, it worked out, but we wanted to add some depth to that. And so we came up with this thing where you can, like, if you time it right, you can pull enemies over to you, and now they're exposed, and you can grab this. So the combat knife is a new thing, so you can grab the combat knife and stab them in the face.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's a kind of, I guess that's not quite a substitute, but sits alongside the kind of chainsawing that everyone knows and loves. So you've got the combat knife available at other times when you don't have the Lancer available.
Well, it's an execution tool, really. Okay. And so when you get any of these CCC moves off, so it's either the yank and shank, so if you yank them over and then you stab them, or the volt kick. So volt kick is another, we wanted to sort of streamline when you get into cover and you want to get over it. You no longer have to slam into cover to be able to mantle over. We added volting, so you can just run at it, press B, you go right over, and if there's someone there, you'll kick them, and again, they'll be vulnerable and you can stab them.
Yeah, I had an enemy do that to me, and it caught me the hell by surprise. I was like, oh, I didn't know they could do that. Okay, that's a good thing. But yeah, it's nice to see you adding things that seem like they fit and belong within the Gears of War universe. And I have to say, I've only played the single player so far. I haven't had a chance to play the multiplayer, but I came away thinking the words return to form. So that seems to be a good thing for you.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want.
Okay. And what are you most looking forward to, like players getting their hands on with something that you've added to the multiplayer this time around?
I mean, we've added a lot, so and we have worked on all of it. Like even the modes that we brought back, we had to re-implement because we use a different game engine than what the previous games were implemented in. And so, I just want to see it all sort of come together. Like the new weapons, the new modes. Super excited about Escalation, seeing how that does. Super excited to see Horde when it gets out there because we added a lot to Horde. And so, even here, when we see people playing, it just makes me happy. Yeah.
Always nice to see your game designer, people actually getting to enjoy your game. And yeah, I'm looking forward to enjoying your game when we get some hands on with it later this year. Do you want to just detail when people can when the game's actually available and when people can get hold of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you can pre-purchase right now. The game launches on October 11th, but if you pre-purchase the Ultimate Edition, you get early access on October 7th.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
So like I said, Arms Race was built for those.
EGX 2016 is now closed. Please make your way to the nearest exit. Thank you.
Yeah. It's closed. So,